summons. Keep me from going to sleep too soon. Or if I go to sleep too soon, come wake me up. Come any hour of night. Come whistling up the road, stomp on the porch, bang on the door. Make me get out of bed and come and let you in and light a light. Tell me the northern lights are on. Or tell me clouds are doing something to the moon they never did before, and show me. See that I see. Talk to me till I'm half as wide awake as you and start to dress, wondering why I ever went to bed at all. Tell me the walking is superb. Not only tell me, but persuade me. You know, I'm not too hard persuaded. Where is our holy church? We'll sing. It's number 113. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Parish in Bedford. Welcome to new visitors and to old friends. Here in this church, human beings have gathered for centuries, seeking a higher purpose and deeper life than they could find alone. Here, the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is at hand. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, which means we are united by shared values rather than by creed. We value love, respect, democracy, inquiry, truth, joy, harmony, and engagement. We know that life is richer, deeper, and more gratifying if we live it together. And so we celebrate the many diversities among us: age, race, class, differing abilities, sexual orientation or gender identity, religious and political beliefs. Welcome everyone, and also welcome to those of you who are joining on TV this morning, somewhere out there in the wide community. We are glad that you're with us, every single one of you, and we're glad that the church has left the building. My name is Megan Lines, and I'm one of the ministers here at First Parish. This week on Wednesday, we mark the start of Rosh Hashanah. This is the beginning of the new year and then 10 days of awe in the Jewish calendar. A common greeting is Shana Tova, which means have a good year. During this time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, Jews are invited to reflect on their lives and seek forgiveness from anyone they may have hurt. This is a good practice for all of us because reflection and repair are good for the soul and good for the world. So I invite all of us into that ancient tradition this coming week. Following the service, join us for fellowship and coffee and some apples and honey. This is a traditional snack for Rosh Hashanah, the roundness of the new year in full, a whole year's completion, and the sweetness of the new year that is to come. You can stop by our welcome table. It's out between these doors and the common room. Find out a little bit more about us and tell us about you. Another way to stay in touch is to fill out a little blue connection card in your pews, and you could leave it in the offering basket later when that comes on by, and you can also fill out some information online. In the back of your order of service, you will find an announcement section. It's just a reminder also that if you ever have an announcement for the entire church community, you can email Joan Petros in the office or a staff person and say, I'd like this in, and that should be in by Thursday. So have a look at those, and here we go. The ministers and members of the membership committee are going to lead a two-part class called You, and You. And this is for anyone who may be new to the church and new to the town, and it's also for people who've been here a long time and just really want to ask some of those burning questions you've always wanted to ask from ministers or people on membership. It's a great way to get on board our moving train of a community. So this is a class that will meet twice. You can come to one or both. It's Wednesday at 7:30 p.m., and it's this week. And it's also next Tuesday, the 30th of September, and you can talk to John, you can talk to me if you'd like to come. You can also just show up. Today at 12:30, we have a gallery reception. It's gallery is up here. We have objects that are part of church life, found stuff, funky stuff from John's office, things that have been up around the church for a while, and you can come and hear about those and see them and have some nibbles. Next Saturday is the Apple Fest. This is a great community event. It's a lot of fun. It starts at 10 a.m. And if you're someone who likes to help out in a one-shot deal kind of a way, it's perfect for that. So do talk to Jean Kalb if you're able to move things or stand there and serve apple crisp or be involved like that. Next Sunday is a Helping Hands Fair at church. And what this is, it's a way for us to figure out those little ways that we can be involved. And committee chairs have been invited to submit sort of extra things that they need done on their committee. And not everyone wants to join a committee, but lots of us have like an hour to spend doing something that can help the community. And so the Helping Hands Fair, you'll see things out on tables that are invitations on kind of ways to help in lots of different ways. And we encourage everyone to have a look at what that is. Maybe you can bring a focal point. Maybe you can do coffee instead of ushering. We always need coffee people to sign up, and you can do that online as well. And let's see, I think I've said all of these things. The Lyceum will begin next week. It'll be at 12:30, so folks can come, and we'll have Alan McRobert talking. So I'd now like to introduce Dan Bostwick, and he is the vice president of our parish board. We're glad you're in that role this year, Dan, and thank you for coming on up and speaking to all of us. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning. I'm here on behalf of the parish board to welcome you to the new church year. So welcome. It's good to be back, and one of the reasons it's good to be back is because this place is in pretty darn good shape. Most every Sunday, a bunch of people show up for our services. Our meeting house is in good repair. We have an outstanding, dedicated staff. Our balance sheet has more black ink than red. Our membership is increasing, and we are a vibrant, loving community. Fewer and fewer churches can make those same claims nowadays. We should all take a little comfort and even a little pride in the fact that we're doing so well, but not too much comfort, and certainly not too much pride, lest a fall cometh after. Rather than rest in our collective laurels, we can use this as an opportunity. With no catastrophic congregational crisis sapping our strength, we have the time and the space to think about the future. Where do we want this church to be in 5 years or in 10 years? What things are we doing well that we want to build upon? And what's not going so great that we may need to tweak or overhaul or completely abandon? What wild and crazy ideas do we want to try? The parish board has been pondering these questions over the past year, working toward the development of a strategic plan. We've solicited feedback from the church committees and from the congregation, most recently in the form of a survey about what brings joy and meaning to each of our lives. That survey is still open, and I encourage you to complete the survey if you haven't, and most of you haven't. Now, this is a UU church, so I'm not going to give you a big guilt trip about not filling out the survey. I'll simply take a moment and glare at you over the top of my glasses. That ought to do it. Details on the survey have been in the last couple issues of The Parishioner, or you can speak to a board member or to John or Megan. All of this feedback we're collecting is informing the development of a strategic plan for the parish, and a draft of that plan will be presented at the semi-annual meeting in November. November is not very far away, so please let us know your thoughts. Take the survey, talk to a member of the board, talk to a member of the staff. We want to hear from you. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you a story about when Tango was young, and the wise one would come to the village and visit with the children. On this particular day, Tango went to the wise one and said, "How come you're always so calm and you don't seem real bothered by things? And I get grumpy a lot. I get grumpy when things don't go well for me. I get grumpy when someone doesn't agree with me sometimes, or when a game doesn't go my way. How come you never get grumpy?" And the wise one said to Tango, "When I was young, I used to get grumpy too. But I learned that there are things that I can do to step away from the grumpy and find some calm in my life. And if I do these things on a regular basis, I won't be as grumpy. And I had something very special that helped me. I had this stone. I would take this stone and I would find a place to lay down, and I would put the stone on the top of my belly, and I would breathe in and feel the stone rise, and I would slowly let the air out and feel the stone sink back down. When things weren't going my way, I would take my stone and I would find a quiet place, and I would do this. Sometimes, even when things were going my way, I would take the stone and I would lie down, and I would take time with my stone on my belly and breathe in slowly and only think about my breath and my stone rising, and only think about my breath leaving and my belly and my lungs emptying and my stone sinking down. And it really helps. So, Tango, said the wise one, I'm going to give you my stone. I call it my touchstone because sometimes when I need to take that quiet time, I need to go back with my touchstone. And that's how Tango learned how to find calm and peace at times when Tango didn't have calm and peace in life. And today at Ingathering, our UU kids are going to have an opportunity to have a touchstone and try finding peace and calm the same way that Tango learned from the wise one.
And so now is a good time for kids and teachers to go off to their ingathering. And as they do, we are going to sing Unrest, which is one of my favorite hymns, and it won't surprise you that it is a little weird. Its text was written by Don Marquis, who used to write stories about Archie and Mehitabel. Raise your hand if you remember Archie and Mehitabel. Some of you do, and as I recall, Archie was a cockroach. That's the kind of weirdness that Don Marquis was up to, and this version of the hymn is one of the very few hymns that contain the words cosmic slime. And I should tell you that the hymn appears in our current hymnal, but the cowards who put this hymnal together took out the words cosmic slime. And so we're going to sing it in its original version. We'll sing Unrest.
Good morning. My name is Bob Batt, and I'm a member of the lay pastoral team here at First Parish. I'd like to invite those of you who have a joy or sorrow that they would like to share to come forward at this time. I ask that you try and focus your thoughts and be brief. I will be here at the candle stand after the service for those who would like to light a silent candle. I light a final candle for those joys and concerns we keep in our hearts.
I'm actually going to insert a reading here, and this is an excerpt from a sermon that was preached several years ago by Gary Smith. Gary is the minister emeritus at the First Parish in Concord, and Gary and his wife are now members here at First Parish in Bedford. The sermon was titled something like "Raise Up the Window Shades," and it was his vision for what First Parish in Concord could be. And in fact, many of the things that transpired at First Parish Concord had their origins in this sermon. It was a time in the life of that congregation when they thought they could do anything, and very often they did. And I'm not trying to preach a sermon quite like that this morning, but this does provide some background that applies to us as well. Gary says, "In my dream, there are members who remember attending retreats at the Common in Peterborough, New Hampshire in years past, and they brought the understanding back here of what that place was. The Common was a retreat house once for Roman Catholic brothers in the Carmelite order, a place where these brothers came from around the world to be renewed, literally to get their strength back. This order of brothers serves in the most destitute and hopeless places of the world, feeding people, teaching, proclaiming justice. And because of the conditions in which these brothers live, they become ill with disease and thin with hunger and even discouraged for change. And they come back to Peterborough and they pray and they are fed and they sing and laugh and gain weight and health back, and then they return to the world. In my dream, First Parish is just such a place. All these rooms and programs and music and education are not for ourselves alone. Our primary mission is outside these walls. This is a place for the formation of community, raising up our children, encouraging our youth, renewing our own sense of hope, reminding each other of what we stand for, and then we go out from here to our jobs, to our volunteer work, to our own philanthropy, to our own acts of social justice, feeding the hungry, painting the walls in an AIDS hospice, walking on picket lines, rebuilding burned churches, reminding people in Transylvania, partner churches and schools that we will not forsake them, struggling for racial justice, working to change politics and government, standing up for those who are falling through the cracks. In my dream, this place is not some monument to the past. It is not about building an empire to our own greatness or constructing some space that never moves beyond self-serving. It is instead a campus of renewal where we can learn and pray and eat and laugh and get our spiritual health back and then return to the world. It is a place where ministry is shared, where some are ordained for particular duties, but where each and every member of every age and station understand themselves and what they do to be a ministry, to be living out a faith of reason, tolerance, and of vision. Recall Wendell Berry's words, "To love anything good, whatever the price, is a bargain." To love anything good, whatever the price, is a bargain. Freely we have received, freely give for the good work of this congregation within and far, far beyond these walls. Our offering will now gratefully be received. sometime when I was in my 20s, when I hadn't any real idea of what I would do with my life, I had a dream one night. I dreamt that I was with a group of friends at night, and we were walking on a street going to a law lecture. Maybe I'd been thinking about going to law school or going into politics, or I have no idea. Somehow I looked over my shoulder, and in the sky overhead I saw an amazing display. Maybe the northern lights were on. Maybe the clouds were doing something to the moon that had never happened before. There were eye-popping colors in the sky, like shooting stars or comets or fireworks. I was transfixed, mesmerized, astonished, and awestruck. And in the dream, I told my friends that they could go on to the law lecture, but that I would stay and watch the sky. And I did. In the morning, when I awoke, it was clear to me that I would not be going to law school or entering politics, but that I would study for the ministry. Go figure. And when I am happy in the ministry, and that is often enough, I am as transfixed, mesmerized, astonished, and awestruck by the mystery and enchantment and miracle and magic of everything that you do and that we do together, and all that we aspire to be for ourselves, for one another, for our kids, and for our world. I am as agog as I was that night looking up at the sky. I mean, it's just the sky. I mean, I've seen it before. It's up there. You've probably seen the sky too. I mean, it's just you and me here, and well, we've been here and done this before. But then, once in a while, maybe the northern lights are on, or the clouds are doing something to the moon that they never did before. That's the frame for what I want to say this morning. Here I am in this pulpit. What am I doing here? For that matter, what are you doing? What are we doing? What is with churches anyway? Of course, we're doing what all who live under the sky have been doing forever. We're trying to make sense of being alive and having to die. We want to link our lives with life and attune our energies with an energy larger than ourselves. We want there to be some point and purpose to it all. We wonder, who are we? And as Megan asked last week, whose are we? We crave hope when hope can be hard to find. We would be reacquainted with love and beauty and truth and goodness and mercy and joy and meanings more than we can name. That's what we do in church, and we've been doing it sort of this way for a few hundred years now. What I'm doing here today would be different, but at least kin to what our first minister there on that plaque, Nicholas Bowes, once did. What you're doing is different, but kin to what people have been doing here on this common since 1729. But now, here is the rub. You know, before I came to Bedford, I served our congregation in Uxbridge, down near the Rhode Island line. That church was gathered in 1727. Its lovely building on the Uxbridge Town Common was built in 1835. Together, we had a growing, thriving, healthy congregation, and yet, last year, the Uxbridge Church went out of business, and that historic meeting house was sold, lock, stock, and hook and Hastings organ, for $134,000, which was about $15,000 more than the asking price. And this morning, the few remaining Uxbridge parishioners would be lucky to be with, say, 20 people meeting at the Unitarian church down the road in the next town of Mendon. In the United States, 7,000 churches closed last year. Between 2004 and 2012, in just 8 years, the Presbyterian Church lost 27% of its members. The United Church of Christ, the Congregationalists, lost 26%. The Episcopals lost 20%. Evangelical churches are actually in decline. Catholics appear steady, but in fact, millions of white Catholics have left, replaced by millions of immigrants, mostly from Mexico and Central America. Unitarian Universalist membership overall is flat, which is great by comparison with others, but it really isn't so great. Meanwhile, when I went to college in the late 1960s, 95% of people in their 20s claimed some kind of religious identity. That number has now plummeted. I think you've noticed that the so-called nones, those who check none of the above when asked their religion, their numbers have skyrocketed to 35%, making none of the above the largest religious group, if you can call it that, for the younger millennial generation. It is ironic that the need for spiritual or religious connection is as great or greater today than ever. Just as Megan said last week, we are deeply relational beings who need and crave meaningful relationship. Disturbingly, studies show that Americans are more isolated, have fewer close relationships, and are lonelier than ever before. The health club where I exercise used to have a basketball court where groups of people, they were called teams, used to play a game called basketball. Not anymore. Now there are individual elliptical, stair-stepper, and treadmills, each with their own video screen and headphones. I took the T to Boston one day last week, and in a crowded car, every face looked down to their very own screens. No gazing at the sky. There wasn't even girl and boy watching. What has the world come to? I am forever trying to figure this stuff out and what it may mean for us. Last summer, I read a magazine profile of Clayton Christensen, who is a professor at the Harvard Business School and one of the most acclaimed observers of organizational behavior. Christensen is most known for his theory of disruptive innovation. Innovation, of course, refers to the process of something renewing itself. Disruptive innovation is a theory intended to be both descriptive of what is happening and also prescriptive of what needs to happen in every organization. For example, in 1947, scientists at AT&T's Bell Laboratories invented the transistor. This new invention was not as good as vacuum tubes, the established technology at the time. How many of you remember vacuum tubes? The transistor could enable smaller, less power-hungry devices. It could not handle the power required by the electronic products of that age. Big tabletop radios, floor-standing televisions, and early digital computers. Still, all the vacuum tube companies like RCA saw the transistor's potential and took a license for it. They tried to enhance transistors so that they could power the big televisions and radios of that age. RCA and the other vacuum tube makers spent $1 billion trying to make a transistor do the stuff that vacuum tubes had done, and they failed. The first successful commercial application of the transistor came in 1952 when it was used to power something that hadn't existed before, the hearing aid. Did you hear me there? The hearing aid. Then in 1955, Sony introduced the first battery-powered pocket transistor radio. The sound quality was tinny and staticky, not nearly as good as RCA's tabletop radios. But Sony chose to sell its transistor radio to non-consumers, to teenagers who could not afford a big tabletop radio. The transistor radio allowed teenagers to listen to music out of earshot of their parents because it was portable. And although the reception and fidelity weren't great, the new device was far better than the alternative, which was no radio at all. The pocket radio was a big hit. I had one. How many of you had pocket transistor radios? Of course you did. And then, just as the transistor disrupted the vacuum tube industry, other things came along to disrupt the transistor radio industry. The theory of disruptive innovation is that something smaller, cheaper, and of lesser quality comes along that appeals to people who weren't buying the old technology anyway. And then it becomes the dominant technology until the same thing happens again. Is it possible, I wonder, that disruptive innovation is happening in religious organizations, in churches, here? Notice, by the way, that tabletop radios have not gone away, nor big screen TVs. Nor do I expect that churches will go away either. But something dramatic and disruptive and perhaps innovative may be happening as well. Christensen has applied disruptive innovation analysis to lots of technologies, to disk drives and automobiles. I remember my father disparaging the first Japanese cars. That Toyota Corona is no match for my 8-barreled Chevy Impala. And when Starbucks first came to my hometown, my father confidently predicted, "They won't last. They serve their coffee in paper cups." And who ended up at Starbucks? Not my father, and the old codgers who drank their coffee from china cups, a whole different crowd went to Starbucks, and my dad's coffee shop went out of business long ago. Christensen applies this theory of disruptive innovation to other sectors and nonprofits. Education, for example. Think online learning. Seminaries and universities, they may not all disappear, though a lot have, but these days, bricks and mortar are not the first priority in education. So, reading this magazine profile of Christensen, I exchanged email with him, asking his thoughts about religious organizations. And then Christensen set up a meeting for me to meet with another Harvard Business School professor named Rory McDonald, who teaches disruptive innovation and other Christensen theories. I had never set foot on the Harvard Business School campus, but last Tuesday there I was in Morgan Hall, and you know who Morgan was. That was John Pierpont Morgan. I brought with me, by the way, another UU minister named Brock Leach, who works with our UU Service Committee and is its director for mission strategy and innovation. Brock is new to the ministry, but in a previous life, he was a vice president at, of all places, PepsiCo. And he was the CEO of Tropicana and Frito-Lay. You know, I would be a lot wealthier today if in my dream way back then I did not have my head in the clouds but was transfixed by, say, snack food. Brock brings great and unique insight to his ministry. And so on Tuesday, Brock and I had a great time with Rory McDonald. McDonald, like Christensen, is a Mormon. And there are lots of stellar organizational observers who are Mormons. In Megan's sermon last week, she referred you to a website that helps you write your own mission statement, a website created by the time management company Franklin Covey, which is the creation of Stephen Covey, author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and all those guys are Mormons. I'll explain or speculate why that is in a few moments. Rory, Brock, and I had a wide-ranging conversation, and we agreed to stay in touch. Some Sunday morning, Rory or Clay Christensen may come to speak here. Rory introduced us to one more aspect of disruptive innovation that may be relevant to us. It is called competing against non-consumption. A fast food place wanted to sell more milkshakes. Now bear with me, folks. They thought that they were competing with other snack foods. And so they tinkered with the recipe for their milkshake, and they tried richer tasting chocolate and seasonal specials like pumpkin pie spice, and they tried thicker shakes and thinner shakes, and nothing made any difference at all. Sales of milkshakes stayed flat. Eventually, they undertook an ethnographic study of milkshake consumption. Ethnographic study. Now I'm really talking like a business school guy. And here is what they found. The milkshake makers were not in competition with anybody else. And nobody much cared about the flavor, the taste, or the consistency of their milkshake. That is not why they bought their milkshake. They bought their milkshake because they had a long drive commuting in their car and they were bored. At first, the milkshake people thought they were competing with other snack foods, but it turns out they weren't. It only takes a minute to eat a banana. A breakfast sandwich can be too messy in the car. A Snickers bar is also gone quickly and leaves you feeling guilty. The milkshake makers were competing against non-consumption. Once they realized the true purpose of their product, well, now they could make the cups bigger to last longer in the car, or maybe they could put in a few little bits of fruit or something just to make it a little more interesting. And that is when milkshake sales increased. So, let's put this all together. The theory of disruptive innovation is alleged to be universal, and let's just assume that it is. If churches are in decline, and yet the need for human community remains, what is taking the place of churches? I guess in that scenario, we in churches are the tabletop radios, and that's all well and good, but who are the portable transistor radios? I ask these questions in good faith, and I do not have answers to them, but I hope we can think about these questions together. Last week, Sue and I had dinner with a group of ministers, and we wondered if any of our kids identify as Unitarian Universalists or attend church. Not one. Last week, I also met with a businessman who said that when he misses church, and he misses it frequently, he usually catches his services on YouTube. Go figure. He told me that it used to be said that if you do business the way you did business 5 years ago, you'd be bankrupt. Today, he said, if you do business the way you did business last year, you'll be bankrupt. And here we are doing business much as we did in 1727. Progress, said Ogden Nash, is okay, but it goes on too long. So has this sermon. Here is where I end up. The point of the milkshake story is to know what business you're in. They were not in the fast food business or the candy or snack food business. They were in the business of alleviating boredom in the car while commuting. What business are we in? Why are we here? I think we need to get much clearer about our answers to these questions. Yes, we say that we are a place of spirit and justice and community. We say that here we nurture lives of joy and meaning. That's a good start, but I think we need to go deeper. That's what our strategic planning process is about, and as Dan asked, I hope you'll participate in some way. That is the thing about Mormons, by the way. They are extremely clear about their purpose, and that's what often makes them geniuses at business. I also think that we need to ponder the innovative disruption of religion. If there's a genuine need for community and human connection, and if churches are not meeting that need, then who is? Can we? Here is what I hope to have happen. We can deepen our capacity to educate and to inspire with music, with programs of spiritual development for all ages as a public presence for social justice. We must reinforce our identity as a spiritual center with a civic circumference. I suspect also that we need to rethink how we communicate and, like it or not, enhance our digital communication and use of social media. We probably will remain an old-fashioned steampunk place of newsletters and Sunday announcements and all the rest, but we also need to communicate in a modern way. Might the concepts of disruptive innovation and competing against non-consumption stimulate or inspire us? I think that First Parish, like all religious communities, is disrupted. And I think if we are to survive as a religious community, we must continue to disrupt and innovate and know what business we're in. I know that there are entrepreneurs here among us, business people who have experience with startups and innovation. I'd like us to brainstorm and learn from one another. What if First Parish were a startup? The First Parish in Bedford, none of the above. What would we look like? I am leaving a sign-up sheet here on the pulpit, and you can give me your email if you'd like to be part of an online conversation on this topic. And if you are watching on YouTube, you may write to J. Gibbons, J-G-I-B-B-O-N-S, at uubedford.org and be a part of this conversation as well. What would be disruptively innovative? Shorter sermons, maybe? Or longer sermons? Milkshakes in the pews? Maybe we need more silence in our worship. Or maybe we need more music and more noise, and maybe we need both these things sometimes. Already we have had belly dancers and jugglers and bagpipes, and on the radio last week I heard about troops of twerking unicorn hoop dancers. You heard me right. Twerking unicorn hoop dancers. You can find them on YouTube, and maybe they are just exactly what we need, or not. Here we are under the sky, and thankfully much of what we see is changeless, eternal. But I ask you, keep me from going to sleep too soon. Come wake me up. See that I see. Tell me the northern lights are on, or that the clouds are doing something to the moon they never did before. Show me. Tell me the walking is superb. Not only tell me, but persuade me. You know, I am not too hard persuaded. We are called. We are summoned. Amen. May it be so. Another hymn on an inserted page. Dare to think, I double dare ya. blessed. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, otherwise the patch pulls away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear results. No one puts new wine into old wine skins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost, and the skins as well. But one puts new wine into fresh wine skins. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.